Pokemon, but it is RuneScape. This is episode 2. If you haven't seen episode 1, there's going to be a link to that one in the description. Make sure you watch that one first because you're going to have absolutely no idea what's going on if you don't. For this second episode, there wasn't a whole lot of RuneScape I got to play, but I did manage to capture all of the gym battles on film, so we're just going to be going over those. I got absolutely carried by my team in this event, so a big shout out to Maz, Wolfie, Pip, 92, Tubby, and Clipper. Before we jump into the gym battles, a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Factor delivers ready-made meals to your doorstep. Their meals are fresh, never frozen, and are specifically designed by dietitians to ensure every meal is packed with science-backed nutritional quality. The number one thing I hate about meal prep is having to clean up the dishes. With Factor, that's out the window. Factor offers a variety of options to suit any diet, from keto, vegetarian and vegan, to calorie smart. Factor helps you avoid ordering fast food. A lot of days I can't be bothered cooking, and Factor makes it easy to not make poor dietary decisions since their food is so quick and easy. Factor's meal plans offer variety with a rotating weekly menu of over 27 meal options and more than 33 add-ons like smoothies and desserts. Use my link in the description or go to go.factor75.com and use code POGEVSFEB50 for 50% off your first box. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Into gym number 4, we're going to be taking on Shailder. First off, we're going to be taking on a level 6 bunny.
Why are you bullying me?
Decide to spirit sap with our Corp Beast, and the first thing we have to do is get a shark from a river troll. The bunny used Endure, and Endures our hit with 1 hit point. We decide to rock smash, and the second task is to slay a grizzly bear anywhere on Isvidar. The rabbit goes down, and now we are up against the Prifdinnis rabbit. We spirit sap with our Corp Beast, and our next task is to slay a deadly red spider on Arendar. The rabbit goes down, and now it is on to our questions. Who gave you a music sheet before you entered Tyrannowin? How many fairy houses are in this picture? What albino animal can be found wandering outside of Prifdinnis? The elves were able to trap Zolcano with the help of Skatizo. True or false? What creature is running in this wheel? How many crystal shards can you expect to receive after an hour of woodcutting maple logs in Gwyneth? What Runemon did Team Rebirth catch in the jungle? A bit of Runimon lore. How many quests are required to enter Prifdinnis? Where is this place? The Prifdinnis agility course has the highest total XP per lap of any agility course in RuneScape. True or false? Which of these pirates has visited Elven lands? Where does this fairy ring take you? Back to the battle, and our Corp Beast is taking on a black dragon. We switch out to our Dagannoth Prime and we use Water Pulse. Next task is to get an axe from a tree spirit. The black dragon takes out our Dagannoth Prime with 1 hit, and we send in our giant mole. Our giant mole uses dig, and our next task is to get any talisman from an abyssal creature. Our attack is not very effective, so we change to Fury Attack. Our next task is to do 1 lap of the Prifdinnis agility course. Fury Attack is super effective, so we decide to do it again. Next task is to get a crystal impling. Giant mole takes out the black dragon, and now we're taking on Zolcano. We decide to use dig, and we need to get any water star from a water fiend in the Prifdinnis Slayer dungeon. Zolcano faints, and out comes the Hunlef. We use Fury Attack, and now we need to slay the black dragon above Prifdinnis. The Hunlef takes out our giant mole, and we send in Zolcano. Zolcano uses Fire Punch, and we need to pick a cabbage in Prifdinnis. We take out most of the Hunlef's HP, and we decide to Fire Punch again, and we need to get some runes from an otherworldly being in Xenaris. We take out the Hunlef and get that Chrysail badge. Now, at this point in the competition, we are up to gym number 4, working on number 5, and no other team has even beaten the second gym yet. We are so far ahead. But before we can continue on to the next area, we need to take out this version of Pokemon, Snorlax. Big Bert goes down, and we're working on gym number 5. Gym number 5, and we are going to be battling Mazknar. I don't know how the fuck you say this. First up, we're taking on a Kilowatt. We send out our Zolcano and use Rock Slide. First task is to get fire runes from a Bloodveld in the Slayer Tower. We take out the Kilowatt, and now we're taking on Karlach. Zolcano uses Fire Blast, and we have to slay Aram the Blighted. Karlach faints, and we're on to our questions. What information did Team Rebirth want from the strange old man? 1 lap of the Werewolf Agility is more XP than 3 laps of the Canifus Rooftop. True or false? What is Bert's favorite food? Where is this NPC located? Which of these can be obtained from Brain Death Island? What was the original name of Mauritania? True or false? You can obtain clue scrolls from the Trouble Brewing minigame. Which of these creatures cannot be found in Mauritania? What weapon is used in the Devious Minds quest? What is not in this picture? What language do the Theater of Blood bosses Verzik Vatur and Sodaseg owe their name to? What can spawn from this chest in a certain quest? What is the max number of players that can fight the Nightmare at one time? And which of these foods is a ghast unable to turn into rotten food? Our Corp Beast is now taking on the Pestilent Scrote. We use Spirit Sap, and now we need to get a Grimy Qualm from a Fever Spider. We take our Bloat, and we're taking on Soda's Egg. Corp Beast uses Spirit Sap, and now we need to get Colored Gloves from a Crawling Hand in the Slayer Tower. Soda's Egg goes down, and we're taking on Verzik. We use Spirit Sap again, and now we need to slay a werewolf in its human form. Our attack takes out half the HP. We use Spirit Sap again, and now we need to slay a Fire Shade in the Catacombs. We send back our Corporal Beast and send out our Zolcano. Zolcano uses Fire Blast, and we need to get Gold Ore from a Gargoyle in the Slayer Tower. Our attack misses. We decide to Fire Blast again, and we need to get Bark from a Swamp Crab in the Haunted Woods. Verzik has 9 hit points left. We Fire Punch again, and now we need to get Bass or Addy Ore from a Terror Dog in Tarn's Lair. Our attack takes out Verzik, and we get ourselves the Sanguine badge. On to gym number 6, and we're going to be taking on Cristelia. Our Core Beast is up against Lil Boo. We decide to use Spirit Sap, and our first task is to get some dark fishing bait from a zombie in the wilderness. Our attack doesn't hit. We decide to use Spirit Sap again, and our second task is to get Lore Runes or Elder Robes from a Chaos Druid in the wilderness. Take out Lil Boo, and now we're up against another Core Beast. We use Spirit Sap again, and our next task is to get a Magic Rune from a Dark Warrior in the Dark Warrior's Fortress. We take out the enemy Core Beast, and now it's time for our questions. Which of these items cannot be found in the ruins west of the Mage Arena? What cannot be found north of the Lava Maze? Where in the wilderness is this? How many items skull a player when equipped? What's the name of this discontinued random event? What level wilderness is this player standing in? What year was the wilderness released? What was written on the letter you got from the Team Rebirth Grunt? What was this early concept of the Maledictus based on? And what faction does the Vigorous Chainmace give protection to in the God Wars dungeon? We're now taking on Callisto with our giant mole. We use Fury attack, and our next task is to get a jug of wine or a banana from an ice giant. Our attack is super effective, and we decide to use Fury attack again. Our next task is to get an onion seed from a black knight in the wilderness. Our attack misses, and Callisto takes out our giant mole. We send in Zolcano and decide on a fire punch. Our next task is to get any steel item from a green dragon in the wilderness. Callisto survives with 6 HP. We decide to fire punch again, and our next task is to get an acorn from a mammoth in the wilderness. Now up against Vedion, we decide to use Fire Blast, and our next task is to get a rune dagger from an Aviancy in the wilderness. We take it out in one hit, and now the Chaos Elemental comes out. We decide to use Rock Slide, and we need a Fire Orb or Fire Rune from a Lava Dragon in the wilderness. Our attack misses, and we go with Fire Blast again. We now need a Steel or Mithril Battle Axe from a Magic Axe in the Magic Hut. I got half the HP, and then we Fire Blast again. We now need to get Earth Runes from an Earth Warrior in the Edgeville dungeon. We take out the Chaos Elemental, and now we are up against Volku. We decide on Fire Spin, and we have to complete 1 lap of the Wilderness Agility course. Our Zolcano faints, and we decide to send out our Dagonoth Prime. Dagonoth Prime uses Water Pulse, and we need to get a Muddy Key from a Chaos Dwarf in the wilderness. We take out around half the hit points of Volku, and we decide to use Water Pulse again. The Dagonoth Prime faints. We send out the Corp Beast, and Corp Beast decides on a Dark Pulse, and we take out the Volku and get the 6th badge. On to the 7th gym now, and we're going to be taking on Neve and Steve together. Our Corp Beast is using Spirit Sap, and our Hesperia is using Sleep Powder. And our first task is to slay the Moss Giant in Galariel's tomb. Dawn almost dies. Corp Beast uses Spirit Sap again, and Hesperia Sleep Powder again. Our next task is to get a Water Talisman from a Water Fiend in the Ancient Cavern. Dawn faints, and now Corp Beast is using Spirit Sap again. Hesperia using Giga Drain, and our next task is to get an Ensouled Ogre Head from an Ogre in Gutanoth. Same moves again, and our next task is an Ensouled Scorpion Head from a Scorpion on Crash Island. And now it's time for our questions. What is this NPC called? Which of these NPCs can award a player the Gnome Scarf? True or false? A player can alchemize a Monkey Grigri. What happens if you stand on this tile on Apatol and perform Jump for Joy? Which of these monsters cannot be found in the Stronghold Slayer Cave? If I start on the left tile and Neve starts on the right tile, how much faster am I making it to the bottom? How many tries did it take for me to get my first Fire Cave? Which of these is not one of the 3 wise monkeys found on Apatol? How many mushrooms are visible in this image? And how many spirit trees have a green mustache? Back to the fight, we're taking on a Demonic Gorilla and Thermi. Corp Beast is using Rock Smash, and Hesperia is using Sleep Powder. And our next task is to complete a lap of the Apatol Agility course. Our attacks have no effect. Corp Beast is using Spirit Sap, and Hesperia is using Leaf Blade. Our next task is to slay a Shadow Spider in the Waterfall dungeon. Our Corp Beast faints, and we send out our Maledictus. Maledictus will use Hex, and Hesperia will use Sleep Powder. Our next task task is to get a rope from a maniacal monkey. We take out Thermi, and now we're taking on Sire. Maledictus is using Hex again, and Hespori is using Sleep Powder again. And our task is to slay a demonic gorilla. Sire is almost dead. Maledictus is using Hex, and Hespori is using Solar Beam. Our task is to complete a lap of the Gnome Agility course. Sire goes down, and Cerberus comes out. Maledictus using Hex, and Hespori using Solar Beam. And our task is to get a batter from a tortoise with or without Gnome Riders. Taking about half the HP of the enemy, but our Maledictus faints. Our giant mole now using Fury Attack, and Hespori now using Sleep Powder. And our task is to slay a Mithril Dragon in the Ancient Cavern. No effect from our attacks. Hespori using Sleep Powder and Giant Mole using Dig. Our task is to get any metal bar from any mob in the Ancient Cavern. Our Giant Mole is underground, and Hespori is going with Sleep Powder. Our next task is to slay a tortured gorilla. We take out Cerberus, and Steve comes out. Giant Mole uses Fury Attack, and Hespori uses Sleep Powder. We take out about half of Steve's HP. Giant Mole uses Fury Attack, and Hespori uses Giga Drain. Steve is almost dead at this point. A Giant Mole's Fury Attack misses, and the Giga Drain hits on the demonic gorilla, so Steve is still alive. Take out Steve with the same moves. One move later, the demonic gorilla has taken out our Hespori, and one move after that, the Giant Mole takes out the demonic gorilla, and we get ourselves the next badge, the UNESCO badge. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't home when my team took on the 8th gym and Victory Road, so I don't have any footage of that, but we are up to the Elite Four. In order to take on the first member of the Elite Four, we have to solve this puzzle. And we have Galvek versus Temperos. Galvek using Psychic, and our first task is to get an oyster from a Mudskipper. Super effective on Temperos, and Galvek uses Psychic again. Temperos goes down, and the Sea Hydra comes out. Galvek uses Outrage twice in a row to take out the Sea Hydra, and now we're up against Zulrah. The Outrage continues, and Galvek takes out Zulrah as well. Galvek now up against the Nightmare, decides on Outrage again, and now our task is to get a Raw Salmon from a River Troll. And in one move, Galvek takes out the entire team, and we beat Shura, the first member of the Elite Four. In order to continue on to the next member, we have to solve this puzzle. It turns out to be a drawing of Zulrah. We're taking on Tazar, Ket, Rak, and we have Elvarg versus Jad. Elvarg uses Dragon Claw, and our first task is to get an Ensouled Hellhound head from Hellhound. We take out most of Jad's hit points. We use Dragon Claw again on Jad, and we take it out, and we get up against a Flame Hydra. We use Dragon Claw on that and take out most of its hit points, and once again use Dragon Claw and take it out. Our opponent sends out Sodazeg. We use Dragon Claw again, and our next task is to get a Fire Rune from the Giant Mole. Do a little chip damage to Sodazeg, and we use Dragon Claw again, and Dragon Claw once more to take it out, and now we're up against Zark. We decide on Dragon Claw again, and our task is to defeat a Gel Ak in the Inferno. Elvarg faints, and we send out our Galvek. Galvek uses Shadow Claw, and Zark faints, and we beat the second member. In order to fight the third member, we have to solve this puzzle, and the third member is Diana. We have Galvek versus Vorkath for the first fight. We use Psychic, and our first task is to get a Bass from Green Dragon. It's super effective, so we use Psychic again, but Vorkath dodges. We get Unparalyzed, and Galvek uses Psychic again. We defeat Vorkath, and Elvarg comes out. We use Outrage, and our next task is to get an unidentified fossil from Fossil Island Wyvern. Galvek faints, so we send out our own Elvarg and use Dragon Claw. The opponent uses Dragon Rush. Both attacks are super effective. We use Dragon Claw again, but the opponent's Elvarg misses, and we take it out with the next Dragon Claw. The opponent sends out Olm. We decide on a Flare Blitz. Our next task is to get any rune from Ancient Wyvern. Our attack is super effective, but so is our opponent's, and our Elvarg faints. We send out our Thermi and Smoke Barrage to take out Olm, and our opponent sends out Galvek. We use Thunder, but our opponent uses Outrage and almost takes us out, and with the next move, it does. We send out our Corp Beast and decide to use Superpower. It is super effective. We decide to revive our Thermi, and Galvek hurts itself in its confusion. We decide to use the Chicken Attack, and our next task is to get Magic Logs or an Adamant Bar from Skeletal Wyvern. Galvek takes out our Corp Beast in one hit, and we send out our Elvarg. Elvarg uses Dragon Claw, and Galvek is almost dead. We use a Phoenix Necklace on our Galvek and send out our Thermi. Our Thermi faints, and we revive our Elvarg. We send that back out and use Dragon Claw and take out the Galvek. In order to move on to the final member of the Elite Four, we have to solve this puzzle, and we're ready to fight the final member, who just so happens to be our father. We start out with Galvek versus the Kraken. We decide to use Psychic, and our first task is to get cheese from a mouse. It's super effective, but Kraken disables it. Now we use Sky Attack, and Kraken uses Hydro Pump. We now use Sky Attack again. Our task is to get a Chaos Core from a Chaos Golem. Kraken faints, and our dad sends out Nex. Use Outrage, but Nex takes us out, and we send out our Elvarg. Elvarg uses Dragon Claw and takes Nex out, and now we're up against Tecton. We use Dragon Claw, and it is not very effective against Tecton. Decide to use Flare Blitz, and our next task is to get any seed from an Aberrant Spectre. Once again, Flare Blitz, not that great against Tecton, but we use it again, and Tecton almost takes us out. And just like that, our dad beats us. Run the whole Elite Four back and get back up to our dad and decide to use Galvek against Tecton. Galvek uses Fly, and Tecton and Galvek faint at the exact same time. We send out Thermi against Skatizo, and we decide to revive our Elvarg here. Skatizo faints our Thermi, and we send out our Corp Beast. Corp Beast uses Spirit Sap and takes out Skatizo in one hit. And just like that, we have defeated our father. But any good Pokemon fan knows that once you defeat the Elite Four, it is not over, and we have to take on the actual champion, who just happens to be our mum. We revive all our Pokemon before going in. We have Galvek versus Cerberus. Galvek uses Psychic. It's super effective. And then we use Shadow Claw to take out Cerb. Next up, we're against Krill. And we decide to switch our Galvek out for Corp Beast. Use the chicken attack on Krill. And then we use Spirit Sap and it faints. And now we're up against Zilliana. Zilly takes out our Corp Beast. And we send out Elvarg. Elvarg uses Flare Blitz and takes out Zilly. Now we're up against Grador. Elvarg uses Will-O-Wisp and burns Grador. Elvarg uses Dragon Claw, and Grador is almost taken out. One more Dragon Claw and Grador goes down, and now we're up against Kree. And with one simple Flare Blitz, we take out Kriara and beat the Elite Four and champion. We are inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we are the very first team to do so. And with that, we secure ourselves half of the prize pool. After it was split up between the team, I walked away with 71.8 million GP. Now, unfortunately, at this point, we were informed that we were only eligible for half the prize pool. There was 500 mil going to the team that beat the Elite Four first, and 500 mil going towards the team that had the most total levels by the end. And unfortunately, one team is not eligible to win both prizes. So myself and about half the team decided to stop playing as much. The other half kept sending it. We ended up coming second in the competition anyway. And after a random roll for a giveaway, I ended up winning a Nibbler plushie. Now, because I didn't do anything to organize the team or basically play any of the RuneScape, I decided to just give this away to Maz, so he's going to be picking that one up. I walk away with my 71 mil and a very, very fun event. This was an awesome event to participate in, and if it happens again, I'll most certainly be doing it again.